Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. So in this very short video, we're going to go over one of the best exercises for releasing the tension in the front part of your shoulder. Now, I've gone through my own shoulder issues in the past whilst training calisthenics and also doing rock climbing. But this exercise for me, out of all the ones I've done in the last 6 years, has probably been the most game-changing one I've ever done. So the only two things we need for the first variation of the exercise is a barbell and a dumbbell. And the second one is just any form of hard ball. We can use a tennis ball that's quite firm as well, based on how tight your teres major is. Now, the biggest contributor towards most people's front shoulder problems, including AC joint issues, is a muscle called the teres major. Now, it's a muscle that's located on the outer part of your scapula going towards the armpit, and it's this muscle that tends to get inflamed and causes all sorts of issues in the shoulder. It affects the positioning of your shoulder, it affects the level of flexion you've got in the shoulder, and also it affects the level of mobility and range of motion you've got in the axis of the shoulder joint. Now, this muscle isn't well known when it comes to the effects it has on the position of your shoulder and also your posture as well. But from what I've experienced in the past whilst climbing and also doing calisthenics, I've noticed that my shoulder extension has improved when I've released this muscle. I've also noticed that the position of how the shoulder sits in the scapula has improved as well. But I'll highlight those benefits once we've done the exercise a little later on. Now, generally speaking, for most people's front shoulder issues, the main muscle that people tend to look at is the pec major. That's because, generally speaking, for most people, when you've got a rounded posture, the pecs are what cause the shoulder to excessively round forward, giving us that appearance of a kyphotic posture. And hence why muscles underneath the armpit generally tend to get overlooked, especially since they're a lot smaller compared to the pectoral muscles. Now, for today's video, we're going to be going over 2 exercises that will target the teres major. The first one is a lighter version and it will probably work much better for most people. The second one can become a little more intense, and hence why I recommend you do the first one first before you go onto the second variation. Right, let's get into the first exercise. All right, so for this exercise, I'm going to use a Smith machine, but feel free to also use a barbell that you find in a gym. To get into position, we want to make sure that the bar is set, so then the armpit can go over the bar quite comfortably. So first thing is we want to place the arm over the edge, and we just want to test it out and just see how that feels. So by having the bar set slightly lower, I can actually lean over the bar and sink my knees down to get a lot deeper into the teres major. Now, if you find your teres major is quite tight, then this exercise without using a dumbbell will probably be already quite strong. So first try and relax into position without using any assistance from a weight. And then once the sensation starts to ease, we can now introduce a weight. All right, so for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to use a 3 kg dumbbell. We don't really need to go that heavy for this exercise. So I'm going to place my arm over the bar, set the armpit on top of the bar, and then you're just going to gently sink down. I'm going to push my outer leg away so then I can go a little deeper into the stretch. And then I'm going to slightly bend the leg that's underneath the bar. To make the stretch more focused around the teres, I'm just going to slightly lift the chest up towards the ceiling and lean back. And you'll notice that will bring the stretch further around to the back of the scapula. Obviously for this exercise, we're going to start off gentle, and then as you start sinking deeper into the muscle, then we can start either leaning further over the bar a bit more or lifting the chest up towards the ceiling a bit more. You'll also notice this changing locations of where you're feeling the sensations. We can also go into a small forward and back movement, which will just make the sensation a bit more even across the entire teres. Nice. Once you found a tight line, we're just going to hold it in that position. Try your best to allow the arm that's hanging over the bar to go limp. The relaxation or the limpness of the arm will give you a rough idea of how deep you're going into the muscle. Nice. To pull yourself out, pass the dumbbell over towards the other hand, and then take the arm out, and then just give it a little shake. Good. So whilst we're doing this stretch, there's a couple of sensations you'll notice. The first one will be, the sensation will be going into the front part of the shoulder. So you might feel this on the AC joint. So this is probably just referral sensations going into the area of the shoulder that you've injured yourself in. The second thing you may notice is a pins and needles sort of sensation in the fingers of the arm that's hanging over the edge of the bar. Now, if it gets too intense, just shake the hand off and go back into position. Or if it's feeling way too intense, then feel free to also reduce the weight that you're using. Now, if you're finding the exposed bars feeling a little too intense in the teres major and also the muscles underneath the armpit, we can always use a barbell pad to reduce the intensity and make it a bit more cushioned underneath the armpit. So we slide that over the bar like you would do if you're going to use it for a squat, and then we rest the armpit over the pad. But the only issue I have with the pad is it takes away from the stretch as well. So once you've found that you've got the most out of the stretch using the pad and the sensation doesn't feel so deep, take the pad out and try the exposed bar out. So when you come out of this exercise, the first thing you'll notice is the looseness of the shoulder. So you'll feel a lot more freer around the pecs and also going underneath the armpit. The second thing you may see is that the length of the arm has also increased. Just by loosening off the teres major, the arm length also increases as well. Thirdly, you may find that the shoulder is now no longer rolling too far forward and you've actually got it sitting back deeper into the scapula. Nice, once we're finished with that side, we're going to take a quick break and do the same thing on the other side. All right, so for the second variation, we're going to come down to the ground and we're going to use a hard ball. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just using a baseball, or you can use a cricket ball or even a lacrosse massage ball. Will probably feel a lot better with this exercise. So based on how sensitive or tight the teres major is, you probably want to reduce the thickness of the ball or the hardness of the ball and go with more of a softer ball. Right, so to get into position, we place the ball on the ground and then we're going to place our armpit on the ball like we did on the previous exercise when we placed the armpit across the bar. So we rest down on the ground, we find the spot on the outer part of the scapula, and then here's the interesting part. You want to lean into the area and then sink deeper. As soon as you sink, that's when the intensity is going to really ramp up. So you want to ease into it as we get deeper into the stretch. Now, for a lot of people doing this exercise for the first time, like I said previously, you're better off doing the first version first before you come down to the ground, just because it feels incredibly intense underneath the armpit. The second thing is the head is not as well supported compared to the first exercise. But we can make a small adjustment by bringing the arm across and then resting the head on the hand. But you'll notice straight away that will reduce the intensity of the exercise, so play it by ear. So you can start off with the head resting against the hand at the start of the stretch, and as the muscle loosens off, you can take the hand away and sink a little deeper into the stretch. So the first thing we want to do is find the tightest line or the tightest spot. And you'll notice there'll be quite a few if you're doing this for the first time. Once you've found it, we're going to try and hold that until the intensity reduces. Now, the good thing about the ball is not only does it allow us to target the teres major, but we can get into other areas of the muscles around the armpit as well. Feel free to also use a couple of yoga blocks or a cushion or something to rest the head on if you find it difficult to rest it on the ground or on your hand. Good, once you've finished, we're going to slowly pull ourselves out of position. And then before you start moving the arm around, just give it a few seconds, allow the muscle to relax. And again, immediately, just like the previous exercise, you'll notice how loose it'll feel, and that will also affect the position of your shoulder. All right, so try these exercises out and then let me know how they go for you. I can pretty much guarantee that it'll make a big difference to your shoulder just by doing it once. And as you start to add it to your exercise routine, you'll see a major difference within a month to 6 weeks. Right, we're done. See you in the next one.